Welcome to our channel. In this video, we'll cover essential concepts, practical tips, and best practices to explain how workflows are executed in Apache Hop. One of the main concepts that new Apache Hop users encounter is the parallel execution of pipelines and sequential execution of workflows. Parallel execution means that the different data transforms within a pipeline run simultaneously, while different actions within a workflow are executed one after another in a predefined order, ensuring dependencies. However, there are situations where you may wish to deviate from these defaults and, for example, running workflows in parallel. While a workflow action can have multiple outgoing hops, this doesn't imply parallel execution. By default, all actions are executed sequentially in the order they were added to the workflow. For instance, in the example below, the workflow will first execute sample pipeline 1, followed by sample pipeline 2. But what if I need to run in parallel? Parallel execution within a workflow is indeed feasible, but requires explicit specification. To achieve this, you can click on an actions icon and select the parallel execution option. Once activated, the hop line will appear dotted and double-crossed. However, it's important to note that parallel execution means sharing resources within the Java virtual machine. Small pipelines and workflows actions that run in parallel may be faster, but larger tasks that demand significant resources may actually run faster when executed sequentially. When running this workflow, the log message will indicate that both actions have commenced in parallel. Now, let's check this scenario. Once you initiate parallel execution from a given action within a workflow, subsequent actions will also run in parallel. In this workflow, where the sample pipeline actions start in parallel, after the pipelines, the write-to-log actions are executed both before it proceed with the dummy action. In many cases, you may prefer to execute only specific parts of a workflow in parallel. How? In such instances, it's recommended to segregate parallel processing into a distinct child workflow. In this example, the section of the workflow intended for parallel execution has been isolated into a child workflow. The child workflow, parallel execution, will execute both actions in parallel. Once the last of these two pipelines finishes, the parent workflow resumes its sequential execution. In summary, by default, workflow actions are executed sequentially, one after another in a predefined order, and parallel execution allows different workflow actions to run concurrently. You also learned how to combine parallel and sequential execution using child workflows. One important note is to avoid combining parallel execution flows back into a single line of execution within a workflow, unless you really need it. For example, if you have two parallel actions that both connect to a single action afterward, it may seem like this would synchronize the flows and continue sequentially. However, that's not how Apache Hop handles this scenario. When two parallel actions finish, both will independently trigger the next action. As a result, the subsequent action will execute once for each completed parallel flow. Remember to separate sequential and parallel execution into different workflows. For example, use a sequential parent workflow to manage the overall flow and a child workflow to handle parallel tasks. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell to stay updated on all our latest content.